Hello, lovely Emily. You very kindly agreed
Yeah.
to chat to me today about your journey from teaching to your current role. So we'll get started.
Yeah.
I'm looking over here, so that's why I'm looking at questions. I'm not like looking away from you on purpose. What inspired you initially then to become a secondary school English teacher in the first place?
So I think it was a combination of things. So both my parents were English teachers.
Right.
And I was always sort of told when I was little that I was like inherently a teacher. Like I sort of liked, I guess I like being in charge. So I always had that sort of like, I don't know, like inkling that that's what I would do. Um, and then yeah, I did my degree in English and it sort of just made sense to go into it then. So I don't think it was like a conscious choice necessarily initially. But then once I sort of started doing it, I was like, oh, I really want to be that teacher. I'm neurodivergent. And I felt like in school I didn't have a lot of help. So I really wanted to be that teacher that I didn't have, if that made sense, that I felt like understood the children. And that's kind of why I kept pursuing it and eventually then did my teacher training after being a TA for a while.
And what did you feel would have benefited you more from teachers when you were growing up that you then wanted to implement in your own teaching?
So I went to a really big high school. There was like 2,000 students, so it was really big. And I was sort of like that middle of the road student that fell through the net. And I didn't know at the time that I was neurodivergent. So I was sort of like clever, but underneath was really, really struggling.
Yeah.
Um, and I just feel like teachers, honestly, I don't. There's a lot of. I don't really blame a lot of the teachers. I think they were too busy to actually have the time to sit and kind of look at students individually and holistically. Um, and then it kind of there was only one teacher that kind of recognised me for who I was. And now I've done the profession, I think I don't blame them because a lot of the time they're kind of struggling to keep their head above water and have got so many other tasks that it's impossible to sit and do the kind of pastoral stuff or sort of figure out what's going on.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I wish that basically I just had more time and listening and kind of like less viewing my behavior as behavior and thinking about the kind of whys of that behavior,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. We've had someone say hi, so I'm just saying hi back to them. So, what led you to transition from classroom teaching to becoming a private tutor? Was there a particular moment that sparked the change?
Yeah, so I became a mother. I've got 3 children, um, and I think that really made me realize quite hard how sorry, how quite hard the profession is when you've got other responsibilities because it's all consuming, particularly when you're full time. So I'd got to quite a good stage where I was head of literacy and I was working 5 days a week, and it was just completely unsustainable with my children. And I'm not ashamed to admit I actually went off sick because I was really stressed and really struggling. And it was just when I had that period of like stopping that I then realized. I'm so sorry if you can hear my children in the background.
Don't
Of course,
worry.
they're arguing because I'm doing something. Um,
Okay.
yeah, it was then when I had that like period of rest that I was like, oh, I'm burnt out all the time. This isn't okay. Um, and yeah, I just felt even like going back part time, I just didn't feel was going to be a healthy option for me. I just wanted to break away and do it on my own terms for my own mental health, really. And so obviously tutoring was a kind of I was using tutoring as a supplemented income anyway, just like bits and pieces here and there. So I naturally fell into it. And then it just kind of snowballed and I ended up getting more and more pupils and I could give them that tailored one-to-one feedback, particularly with neurodivergent learners, which I tend to attract. I don't know why I tend to get a lot of them. Or maybe it's because they need more support. Um, and yeah, I could have that kind of what's the word like back and forth that you don't get in a class of 30 kids, you know. So
Yes.
yeah,
A lot of teachers I knew that became parents, they either went down the part-time route or they left.
yeah,
That's quite common once they um, or they stayed and they said, I'm either a good teacher one day and a good parent, or vice versa.
Yeah, you can't be both. And I think it feels as well like when you're doing that, you can't sacrifice the parenting. That's got to come first.
Mm,
So, like, eventually, I think everyone kind of realizes that, because that if you put the emphasis on the students that you're teaching, it's almost like you're I felt like it was almost like I was caring more about them than my own children. So there's this like added guilt.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And a lot of parents talk about guilt anyway,
Yeah.
aside from, if they're in teaching. So this is the part that's really interested me because I love yoga, but you've added yoga and hypnobirthing to your toolkit.
Hmm.
I kind of have an idea of how the hypnobirthing came into your life, but how did yoga and both of them come into your life, and what drew you to them? Because I love yoga with Adrian. I'm a massive fan of her.
Yeah, yeah, she's great, isn't she? So I think like I said to you, I had a period of time when I went off work. And yoga has always been something that I'd kind of like done as like a kind of a form of exercise, but also like a way to kind of chill my mind.
Yeah,
Um, and so I started doing it again because I hadn't had the time when I was teaching. Like, I was so burnt out. So I was like, right, let's do some yoga to just try and feel me again. Um, and the more I was doing it, uh, the more I guess algorithms and whatever. I had the thing pop up on my phone that was like, you could train to be a kids yoga teacher. Um, and I was like, oh, okay. So I'm still teaching. I would still be doing something I love. And when I left teaching, I noticed one of the really big things, particularly after COVID, like behavior. Anyone in teaching will probably agree, like behavior took a massive dip, and kids' mental health became much more like apparent. And that's a conversation that's going on anyway. So I was like, kids yoga could be really beneficial. I could still go into schools. I could still do that element of it that I love, but
yeah,
be in charge of it and actually be helping kids in the way that I always wanted to, like the kind of
yeah,
social and emotional way, which, trained teachers know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, we need to meet those basic needs before we can expect them to learn. And that's often not the case these days. So
mm,
it initially started with kids yoga, and then the lady that I did it with, Jackie Heffercook, shout out, um, she also ran pregnancy yoga and baby yoga. And really, that was honestly just to supplement my income to train in all of them so I could fully immerse myself in that side of things. Um, and yeah, I really enjoyed the pregnancy yoga as well, because I was actually pregnant with my third when I started that training. Um, and then the hypnobirthing, obviously I've had lots of babies. And that kind of a lot of the techniques you use in hypnobirthing are like yoga anyway. So people think of yoga as like just a form of exercise, but there's like 8 limbs to yoga.
yeah,
um and one of them is obviously the kind of breath work, pranayama, and meditation. And so they sort of came into the way that I wanted to birth anyway. And yeah, I had a really successful hypnobirthing experience with my daughter. So this was before I trained in it, and so I was like, well, let's add that to the mix because it kind of goes in with it, and using those skills in pregnancy yoga anyway. And yeah, I've had some real success from people doing it, and obviously because it's something I'm passionate about, I think that's like reflected in the way I teach it. So I still feel like I'm teaching something that I'm passionate about rather than teaching something prescriptive, which is how I felt when I was still teaching in mainstream education.
yeah. So for people that have just joined, we're obviously you've talked about your time as a secondary teacher, and
Yeah.
moved on to yoga and hypnobirthing because someone's going hypnobirthing. What do you mean? So yoga was actually starting to be brought into teaching by the time I left. It was part of the curriculum because
Yeah.
noticing children's mental health on the decline. So it's interesting that you've gone into that. Have
Mm.
you noticed any crossover between, I don't know, really teaching English and yoga and those type of
So
things?
I think with So with the yoga, the way the lady that trained me, like I said, is fabulous, and she um sort of teaches yoga. So I mean, a lot of people now are familiar with Cosmic Kids on
Yeah,
YouTube, and the way that she does it is a kind of adventure.
yeah,
And so the way that I teach kids yoga is kind of going on an adventure, and it's really easy teaching it in that way to kind of story tell and create links to the curriculum.
yeah,
So I have done one before, with English, where we talk about adjectives and we talk about how we can describe that adjective with our body, like what would it show. So I think it's kind of a creative tool, um, which I think we really need in education. Like, we need more creation. Kids can't sit still as much. Kids, it's a struggle to kind of sit and learn how we used to, and we're still in this Victorian system that I don't think works anymore. So using something physical like yoga and tying it into whatever subject, like that, it's doable. It's like it's storytelling and using your body to express something, but learning at the same time. So yeah, I think
yeah.
it definitely, there's definitely a link.
Now, when we were chatting before we did this, you
Mm.
did mention that you wanted to do merge everything into like a holistic home-ed hub. Uh,
Yeah.
what in your mind does that look like?
So at the moment, I'm doing a postgraduate diploma in Waldorf and creative um, pedagogies. And through that, I've been looking at different kind of forms of progressive education.
Hmm.
And like I was just saying, that kind of need for creation. So I'd love the idea of having a kind of land-based place. We know how important outdoors and nature is for mental health, and particularly, we are seeing more diagnosis and things like ADHD. So getting kids out in spaces where they can move is really important. So having some sort of like outdoor space, like ideally, this is my vision. I'd have like a nice walled garden with a big yurt and a kind of like teepee classroom or something. Um, and have, yeah, again, yoga as part of the curriculum, looking at materials so students can kind of feel textures and think about from mammal to materials. One of the things I want to do, so like seeing sheep, shearing the sheep, spinning the wool, dyeing the wool, making it into yarn, and then making something with it. So we see this whole process. So a lot of the skills that we've lost, B, that are also a lot of them are in the Waldorf curriculum already. Um, and also just things that suit children more, that aren't the kind of children who can sit at a desk and learn that way all the time, learning through immersion and creativity and feeling. So yeah, that's my plan. But I need some funding.
It seems to be a popular, I'm not going to say, well, kind of theme at the minute, because I've noticed a lot of world schooling communities are trying to
Yeah,
do things like that. And
yeah.
even my screen's gone dark for some reason. I don't know why. And for some reason, even what was I trying? Oh, I came across something last night where people are setting up communities to.
Mm.
Sorry, I don't know what's happened to my screen, but I don't know if it's just.
Mhm.
But anyway, so you kind of covered it anyway. But what gaps do you feel there are in the education system that you could cover in this type of home ed hub, apart from like the things that you've mentioned, possibly? Or is there
Yeah,
anything
I
else?
mean, yeah, I think the whole education system needs an overhaul. Not so much the primary, like the primary seems to be getting there. Like,
Mhm.
they seem to be listening a little bit more to research and adding in elements of like the Scandinavian kind of philosophy and looking at educational research that is beneficial. But particularly with the secondary curriculum, I don't think it's so overwhelming for kids to go from this primary place where they feel safe to different lessons with different teachers in bigger halls and bigger kids, and just sitting at desks to learn. There's really not much movement, or certainly in my experience. I don't know, there might be more progressive schools out there. And so I think, yeah, filling in those gaps for those students that that kind of learning doesn't work. And also they a lot of the things that are taught aren't so much relevant to the jobs that we've got. You know, we've got, why don't we teach more coding? Why don't we teach more, I don't know, things that are progressive to the way that the jobs that are going to exist when these children are older. Um, and also just things like financial responsibility. So just covering kind of like life skills,
Mm,
um, as well as as well as more creative forms, you know, pottery and knowing about herbs, you know, what herbs can be used for because they are a form of medicine. Um, so these kind of things, that we're just more in touch with the natural world, more in touch with nature, and that we are part of nature, more in touch with creativity, and more in touch with real life skills that are going to benefit people when they leave school.
Someone else has just said hi, so I'm just saying hi back.
Mhm.
Because I think we are at a point now where are so reliant on supermarkets and all that kind of thing. So making people less reliant, I guess, so that they can
Yeah.
thrive on their own. So, what have been some of the biggest challenges in going from being a secondary teacher to the point you're at now?
So I think money, like honestly, if I'm being really honest, like finances is one. So going from like a secure income,
Yeah, that's
um,
really overwhelming.
is, yeah, exactly. And I think realistically, that's got to be the biggest challenge, if I'm totally honest. Um, so that kind of lack of security is always difficult. And sort of chasing your own work, like keeping on top of it. You know, when I was in secondary education, a lot of it's kind of, although you're doing your own planning all the time and you're constantly playing catch up, you do have a kind of structure to follow. So for me as a ADHD person, trying to organize that structure's been a challenge. Um, and yeah, also just grouping together the information that I need to set up business. So the business elements I've had to learn myself.
Mhm.
I know business is taught in schools, but you know, in there's a lot to learn there. Um, and yeah, just kind of trying to figure out how progressive education hubs work, how I can do it, where I need to look for resources, advertising, marketing, like all of these things are so new to me. Um, which, yeah, you're not taught at in teaching. You're in under a bit of a safety net, I feel, with teaching, because there's always jobs. And it's, you know, once you know how to do it, it's okay. It doesn't change. So yeah, I feel like it's a bit of a challenge adapting to all these different elements.
It it can take like you still like I've been out 3, 4 years now, and you're
Yeah.
learning every day, everything's
Mm,
new, and it is scary to go from that permanent income all the time.
yeah.
And I see a lot of people like on the groups on Facebook saying, "I'm on this wage, this is my salary, sorry. What job can I do that meets that?"
Yeah. Yeah.
To be frank, you won't meet that when you first come out unless you get very, very lucky. Like you
Yeah.
work from scratch, you're learning everything from scratch. So
Yeah.
in another profession, they wouldn't go into a job and just earn that wage straight
Hmm.
away. Like from like I think you do have to be realistic that something's
Yeah, definitely.
you can't just get that. You've worked in those years in teaching for that long and
Hmm.
built up that experience and you've got that salary because of that experience and you have to do it on your own and you don't
Yeah.
get as much support when you do it on your own because it's all on you. It's not, you don't have a team behind you. So if someone's watching and they've liked the path that you've gone on and they're interested in doing something similar, because there are lots of different versions of alternative education, hubs, models, what advice would
Hmm.
you give them?
So I think doing your research obviously is the most important thing. And honestly, I'm still getting there with it. So there's lots of different like Facebook groups and stuff you can join about progressive education and also university courses. So the one that I'm doing is actually really great because um there's a lot of research I've got to do in it anyway to kind of pass it. So that's been really helpful. for like what I want to do, even though it's not, it's a course about, it's a learning course as opposed to a like business course.
Mm,
But I'm kind of learning the skills alongside it, which is really helpful. So yeah, I think not being afraid to go into another course. Like if you don't have a master's degree and you're a teacher and you want to go into it, looking at the different kind of progressive masters that you can do, because you can get funding from student loans now to do masters.
mhm,
Um, so I'd look at that, joining all the Facebook groups, talking to other people. And something else I want to do actually is set up a kind of like help teachers leave teaching kind of online coaching course.
mm.
So, I'm sure there's probably some around already, things like that, just getting yourself out there and seeing what assistance you can get, because it's scary initially, I think.
It is.
And not being afraid to go off sick while you figure stuff out if you've reached that burnout point. Like, I think that's really important.
And to just kind of round up, what are you currently offering and where can people find you?
So I'm based in North Yorkshire. So a lot of my work obviously is up here with the kind of physical stuff, but I do offer online tutoring in English language and literature, right from Key Stage 1 up to Key Stage 4. Um, I also offer student mental health support and neurodivergent organisation support. I also will be, my website is currently in the making, but I'll be offering online teens and upper key stage 2 yoga soon online. And at the moment it is under Zen Mama Emily. So if you go on the Zen Mama website and look for Emily, you'll find it, or my Facebook page.
Oh, well, thank you very much for joining me. It's been lovely to chat to you, and I wish you all the best on your journey.
Yeah, thank you ever so much.
It's lovely. If you are an ex teacher watching our live, please do get in touch if you want to share your journey. I'm TDU Tutoring on social media. And thank you again for joining me today, Emily. See you soon.
Thanks.